6.
I went back to the apartment complex where Gary and his daughter lived. It was a particularly rundown place, every door plastered with a patchwork of flyers and advertisements. I noticed something on my first visit. One section of Gary's door was conspicuously pale, newer looking than the rest. That meant someone had recently torn down a flyer that had been posted there. I grew up in a place like this. Our rental was in an old building just like it. People were always coming through, taping up ads. Anyone who brought in a client through one of those flyers got a cut of the commission. Over time, the paper would yellow, curl at the edges. But when you ripped one down, the wall underneath stayed clean and white. I photographed every flyer on Gary's door. Alongside the usual locksmith and drain cleaning ads, there were others, less legal. Egg donation, abortion services. After photographing Gary's door, I moved further down the hall and stopped at a door whose padlock was thick with dust. No one had been home in months. I pulled out my photo collection and compared it carefully against the flyers on Gary's door, minus the blank spot. After going through each one, I found my answer. The flyer that had been torn from Gary's door was for an underground gambling den. The dark suspicion I'd been carrying was beginning to take shape. But a single torn flyer wasn't enough. I needed something solid. Proof that Gary had kept the $600,000 for himself and spent it gambling. They say 9 out of 10 gamblers lose. The state of Gary's apartment made it pretty clear he'd lost. And people who get hooked on gambling can't stop, win or lose. If he'd blown through the money, he'd have found a way to borrow more. Through legal channels, Gary had no options, which meant loan sharks, and loan sharks always have paperwork. A thought formed in my mind. When the paramedics arrived, I'd handled the cleanup. I'd pocketed Gary's house key while locking the door. All I had to do was use that key, go back in, and find the paperwork. But this was a gamble of my own. If I was wrong, if Gary hadn't been gambling, if I didn't find anything, I'd have broken into someone's home. If it ever came out, I'd be blacklisted from the industry. My career would be over before it began. But if I was right, if Gary had stolen $600,000 in donations and spent it gambling while his daughter went without treatment, while she lay there deteriorating toward organ failure and death. If all of that was true, and Gary wasn't the devoted father the internet believed him to be, then what else might that girl be enduring? If I was right, I might save a life. If I was wrong, I'd lose everything.
So,
do I gamble?